time to talk about the best and worst of 2016. Hello everyone and welcome to Movie Reviews by Josh. My name is Josh Terry, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. It's coming to the end of the cinematic year of 2016, so I thought I would take a little bit of time to tell you about some of my favorite and least favorite movies for the year. First thing I'm going to do is tell you about my 10 favorite movies, not necessarily the best movies I saw this year, but definitely some of my favorites. And then at the end, I'll talk about some of the ones that didn't quite make that list. In fact, didn't even come close to making that list. So we're going to start with number 10 on my list, which is, conveniently enough, 10 Cloverfield Lane. This movie, which is technically a sequel to the original Cloverfield, was a surprise to a lot of us, in that it existed at all, because we didn't know that it was coming. It was filmed under a different name and everything was kind of kept under wraps, and then all of a sudden, this story of a woman who gets in a car crash and wakes up in a bomb shelter with a guy who may or may not be protecting and helping her was actually kind of a surprise. Now, it's kind of a horror movie and kind of a sci-fi movie, but the best thing about it is it just keeps you guessing. Every time you think you know where the movie is going, it takes a different direction. Number 9 on my list is the Disney musical Moana, which came out towards the end of the year and was just a lot of fun, a hero's journey about a young Polynesian girl who has to sail off into the unknown in order to save her island people. There's some fun music, some great characters, some really fantastic animation, and just a really, really positive story. Now, on a related note, number 8 on my list is Life Animated, which is a documentary about a young autistic child who is able to access the world around him through his love of Disney movies. Now, if you're a fan of Disney, you're going to love this. But even if you're not a fan of Disney movies, you're really going to be touched by this story. This is just a sweet little documentary I saw at Sundance earlier this year. It's been getting a lot of well-deserved praise throughout the year, and it's an uplifting and a very inspiring story. Number 7 on my list is Captain America: Civil War, which is the latest in a long, long line of superhero movies that we've been seeing for the last several years, and really one of the stronger ones, probably because it doesn't have a big beam of light and a CGI monster at the end of it. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy comic book movies as much as the next guy. Not as much as some of the diehard fans, but I really do enjoy them. And one of the things I really loved about Civil War was how it focused on the human element. I saw a lot of movies this year, not just superhero movies, but a lot of films that were built around ensemble casts, and they always seemed to get so caught up into telling everybody's story that there was no real focus. And the thing that I loved about Civil War was that they packed in all these different characters, and yet at the same time, it was still focused enough on the primary relationship between Iron Man and Captain America, and again, focused on the human element in such a way that I was really able to connect a lot more with the story and feel engaged with it. And it was just a lot of fun. I feel like Ant-Man and Spider-Man were the unsung MVPs of this movie, and altogether the whole package made me more than happy to watch more Marvel movies to come. Number 6 on my list takes us down kind of a different path. It's another documentary. It's called The Music of Strangers. Now, this documentary is about a group of musicians that was put together by the famous cellist Yo-Yo Ma to perform different concerts around the world and to basically share their love of music and their culture with all kinds of audiences and all kinds of people all across the world. And what's really great about this movie is that, I mean, for one thing, it shares their love of music, and it's really, even if you're not into the kind of music itself, this is very world music is basically the easy way to describe it. There's still a passion for it and an enthusiasm that really just kind of jumps off the screen at you. It's very enjoyable in terms of learning about other cultures, but there's also kind of an interesting approach to the way that their story as a group is impacted by the politics and the history and just the current events that are happening around them, which is something that takes it from just kind of a simple documentary about a group of friends who are incredible musicians to something a little bit more meaningful, while still being accessible to all kinds of people. So if you like documentaries, if you like music, I definitely recommend Music of Strangers. Now, number 5 on my list is one of the strangest movies I've seen this year and for several years, actually. I saw this at Sundance earlier this year as a movie called Swiss Army Man, which is about a live guy and a dead guy, basically. Now, the live guy is played by Paul Dano. The dead guy is played by Daniel Radcliffe. And the live guy essentially has to find a way to survive in the wilderness through the use of the dead guy, which sounds weird, and it is weird. It is crazy and strange and over the top and childish, and yet kind of heartwarming and inspiring at the same time. There are some really great lessons in here that are hard to believe they actually make it out. So now I would especially love to know if you had a chance to see this movie already. Please make some comments below, because this one's a crazy one. People need to share their experiences with seeing Swiss Army Man. So number 4 on my list will expose my inner Star Wars nerd. Okay, we're going to go with Rogue One. I really enjoyed Force Awakens last year, and I think it was a big relief to a lot of Star Wars fans who felt like the franchise was swimming in unsure waters. Force Awakens did well, and then Rogue One this year I think was really fantastic. Especially loved the ending. There's no need to say a whole lot more than that, but if you're a Star Wars fan, chances are you loved Rogue One. Number 3 on my list is another musical. This was Damien Chazelle's La La Land, which is getting a lot of attention right now and is probably going to continue to do so. It's about a struggling jazz pianist and a struggling actress who are trying to make their way in Hollywood and wind up in each other's arms and out of each other's arms and back in each other's arms along the way. The music is fantastic, the story is fantastic, the acting is wonderful. If you've already seen this, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, definitely check out La La Land, one of the best ones of the year. Number 2 on my list is a little more under the radar. Not a whole lot of people saw this one, but they definitely should. It's called Hunt for the Wilderpeople. It's a New Zealand film made by the same director who did What We Do in the Shadows and who is currently working on the new Thor movie. Hunt for the Wilderpeople is a heartwarming and quirky and fun story about a young foster child who winds up under the care of Sam Neill, and the two of them, through a series of wacky events, wind up out in the wilderness fleeing the authorities. And it's just sweet and crazy and off the wall, and there's a late cameo from another actor that if you're a fan of New Zealand stuff, you're gonna love to see that. So if you're looking for a movie with a real sweet heart and a great sense of humor, Hunt for the Wilderpeople was under the radar. A lot of people didn't see it. You definitely should. And that brings me to number 1 on my list, which is John Carney's Sing Street, which is a story of a 15-year-old boy in an Irish boys' school who forms a band to impress a girl. What other reason is there? This is an awesome, awesome movie. Carney is the same guy who did Once several years ago, if you're familiar with that film. This one is equally awesome. The music is incredible. It's set in the mid-'80s, and so there's definitely that nostalgia factor. So if you have ever been in a band, or if you just like music, or if you have any inclination towards being a hopeless romantic, this movie will have you wrap up around its little finger. Jack Rayner actually plays the 15-year-old boy's older brother, who's kind of a college dropout, and he steals the show. He's incredible. The whole movie is just wonderful, and definitely my favorite movie of 2016. So at this point, we have covered my favorite movies of 2016. And if you want to end on a high note, stop watching right now, because now we're going to talk about some of the movies that weren't so good. But sometimes talking about these movies helps us all feel a little bit better about our experience. We can share our pain and we can grow together. Which leads me to my top 5 worst movies of 2016. So number 5 on my list of worst movies of 2016 was Mother's Day, which is the latest of the ensemble holiday comedies, dramas, I'm not really sure, but there are a whole lot of characters, a whole lot of stars, and just a big mess. The whole purpose of Mother's Day seems to be to show us a cross-section of all the different mothers that we find in the 21st century and all of their different situations. But the message that comes across is that everybody is screwed up and that the happy nuclear family just doesn't exist anymore. The one thing it doesn't really do is celebrate motherhood. This is kind of a depressing movie. It was not very fun. Definitely want to skip this one. Number 4 on my list of worst movies for 2016 is The Fifth Wave, which was the latest of the young adult dystopian novels that was brought to the big screen. This one had Chloe Grace Moretz. There's some kind of an alien invasion that comes in waves, and it's really, really overcomplicated, even though these are really highly intelligent aliens, supposedly, and don't bother. Number 3 on my list of worst movies for 2016 is The Choice, which is the latest of the sappy romance movies from Nicholas Sparks. And I just want to say, I don't have any problem with romance. Love is a real thing. It's wonderful. It's great. It's good. It's not the choice. Your choice should be, don't see this movie. It's more beautiful people making stupid choices. For the number 2 spot on my list, I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to combine 3 weak horror movies. There's The Boy, starring the girl from The Walking Dead, playing opposite a dummy. Then you have The Darkness, starring Kevin Bacon and some Anasazi demons. Then you have Incarnate, which is Two-Face trying to cast demons out of a young Bruce Wayne. Okay? Now, All three of these are very, very weak. And I like horror movies. I love the original Night of the Living Dead. I used to have a zombie fest every year, okay? These movies are just weak. Like, honestly, the best thing that came out of these three movies was that it inspired me to come up with one of my best article titles for one of my reviews this year, which was that even bacon can't give the darkness any flavor. So yeah, if you wanted to see a scary movie from 2016, rule those ones out. And that brings me to the best of the worst, my number one worst movie of 2016, based almost entirely on a sense of disappointment, Suicide Squad. Now, we all saw the trailer earlier in the year and thought, hey, this looks like a wacky, crazy, dark, but funny comedy. It's going to be kind of like The Dirty Dozen, only with superhero bad guys. And wow, was that a letdown. It wasted a couple of really good performances, had a really awesome idea they just didn't do anything with, and my goodness. DC, please, just try harder next year. I want to love your movies. I want to enjoy your movies. I didn't this year. So unless you were inspired to dress up as the Joker or Harley Quinn for Halloween, Suicide Squad, it let us all down. And that brings us to the end of 2016. Lots of really, really good movies, lots of in-between ones. The summer was kind of a letdown. Definitely some bad ones, okay? But I would love to know if there are any movies that were on your list that weren't on mine. Please tell me about them in the comments. If you disagree with any of my choices, feel free. Offer your arguments in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe. Always keep your notifications on so you can see the new videos we post as soon as they come up. We'd also love to thank our sponsor, Rockagator, makers of fine waterproof backpacks for your outdoor adventures. And thanks again for watching, and have a great 2017.